You are listening to NewVision, OldWays, the podcast that explores timeless wisdom for the modern mind in a fun, relaxed, and most important, interactive way with you, the listener. I am your host, Tony Marinaccio, and let's get the episode started. Welcome, everyone, to the NewVision, OldWays podcast. And as always, I am your host, Tony Marinaccio, and I want to start off by saying a big thank you to all of you who are listening to the podcast. Each episode is growing by leaps and bounds, and that makes me so happy and proud that I get to be a positive influence to people from around the globe. And hopefully, what I talk about in these episodes is helping people to grow, get over depression and anxiety, and live a happier and better life because, well, that is the purpose of the show for sure. So before I begin this episode, I want to have a big ask from you. I would love to see if you could send me your stories, your struggles, and if this podcast is helping you move forward in life. And I'll also ask that if there are subjects that you want to touch on, please let me know, because this show is for all of us, and we can certainly all learn from each other. And I firmly believe that the world can use as much teamwork as we all can get. And I'll go over the ways to get a hold of the show at the end of the episode. But as always, they are in the show notes for sure, so please look there. And now, let's see what's in store for this episode. I want to talk about a subject that I feel is very misunderstood and today even maligned in many cases, and that is the concept of courage. Courage is a way broader subject than you might imagine and a serious struggle for many people. There are a lot of things to touch on here, so without further ado, let's start episode 24, Courage, Unlocking Your Boldest Self, Part 1.
Courage and comfort can't ride the same horse. Courage has been defined in lots of ways, but my favourite is John Wayne's definition. Courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyway. I'm guessing that you've had times when you've saddled up anyway. But I'm guessing there's also been times when you haven't. When fear of what you didn't want kept you taking the very actions to go after what you did want. Fear does that. Fear's wired into our psychological DNA to keep us safe, to protect us from pain. If our brains weren't exquisitely wired to alert us to potential dangers, to protect us, we wouldn't be here now.
That was Dr. Margie Worrell. And she points out that being alerted to fear is pre-wired into our brains. The key to having courage, though, is to know that we can wire in as much courage as we are able to in order to handle the fear our brains alert us to. Courage is often romanticized as a heroic thing with an almost mystical quality to it. However, it is deeply rooted in brain function and the intricate interplay of neurochemistry, emotions, and decision-making processes are all part of it. Having the basic knowledge of the neuroscience behind courage can help us consciously cultivate it in our lives. I strongly believe that once people understand how much courage they didn't even realize they had in their everyday life, they can then have the confidence needed to pursue their dreams and become who they were meant to be. But it's the gap between not realizing how much courage you actually have to knowing what the potential can truly be. That is the key to all of this. Once we realize that courage can be a gradual, step-by-step process, then we can confidently train our brains to feel more and more courage in moments where before we would have shied away from or ignored the opportunities in front of us. Understanding what courage really is can be helpful in knowing that not only do you have more courage than you thought you had, but it can also help you understand that courage can be a changeable quality, meaning that your courage can grow with you and become a trait that you should be proud of. You don't have to be David who fought Goliath or rescue someone from a burning building in order to have courage. It could be drilled down to just working through a difficult family experience and making it on your own when it looked like the cards were stacked against you. That's courage. You could be a single parent working hard to support yourself and your children and making it work. That takes courage. Or How about someone who has a disability that strives every day to not let that disability stop their progress? That takes a lot of courage, or sometimes even just getting through the day takes a lot of courage. So there are many examples of difficulties that life can throw at you, but you will get through it, and courage is at the heart of it all.
Now, if we want to be courageous, according to Stoic ethics, does that mean that we have to become these fearless warlords as we see in movies about the ancient Greeks? Or do we have to become the hero that saves the princess? Not necessarily. Courage is a Stoic virtue. This means that courage is part of what the Stoics call eudaimonia, which means flourishing, and is regarded as the end goal. It's important to notice that according to the Stoics, eudaimonia equals life in accordance with nature, which is regarded as an optimal way for human beings to live.
If we look at the Stoic view of courage, which, by the way, I dug into all the way back in episode 2, you might remember that courage in the Stoic sense encompasses mental and moral fortitude, the capacity to face physical threats, ethical challenges, personal fears, and societal pressures. Stoic courage isn't a fleeting moment of valor or a state of being fearless. Fear can be present, but the ability to overcome that fear and act courageously is, of course, the key. A touchy area that has come to light over the last 10 years especially is the attempt to weaken both men and women and to control us by accusing especially strong men that being masculine is somehow insensitive to others. Our media and various politicians try to guilt men into feeling like the more courageous and confident they are, the more insensitive and uncaring they are. Even accusing men in general who are strong as having no empathy for others, no sympathy, and even being supremacists, which is crazy, with absolutely no proof of that. And they are doing that only to guilt and tear down what was once revered so that others who look at themselves as weak or overly sensitive can feel better about themselves. And I have always believed that we should help bring people up, not tear others down in order to meet them at the lowest common denominator. But men and women can be strong and courageous, and it can be a deliberate change on your part. Regardless of what any squad of people say, you can be strong and have empathy for others. It's a great combination of abilities. But to do this, we need to know how all of this works and connects. Knowing how your brain can process fear and courage is very important because it can then allow us to understand what we need to do in order to attain the level of courage we desire and what may be holding us back, which is vital. And what can be holding us back can be very surprising.
Best pathway forward is to face the things that challenge, confront, and threaten you voluntarily. We know that that is transformative. We know that that improves people's mental health. We know that it makes them braver. What you do with the person in therapy is you find out what obstacles are standing in their way, stopping them and making them bitter. And you plot and strategize with them about how they can decompose that obstacle into smaller constituent elements and face it.
That was Jordan Peterson. And facing our challenges is vital to overcoming fear. So let's learn about the mechanics of the brain. And bear with me on this. It will all tie together for you. I promise you. I really don't want to get too deep into the woods with the technical workings of the brain, but understanding this should hopefully shed a light on how malleable our brains really are and how we are all in control of how our brains work. I dug into this area in episodes 22 and 8 pretty deeply, but now I want to briefly go over how this all works in our amazing brains. When we talk about our fears, where exactly do fears hide in our brain? Well, the answer is in the amygdala. This area of the brain is a small almond-shaped structure and is a central hub for processing fear. When we encounter a threatening situation, whether it's a physical danger or simply the fear of public speaking, for example, your amygdala activates, initiating the fight or flight response. This triggers physiological changes like an increased heart rate, rapid breathing, and a heightened alertness. Courage in this area is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. For courage to emerge, Other areas of the brain must regulate or quiet the amygdala's alarm system. The prefrontal cortex, located at the front of the brain, plays a crucial role in evaluating the risk and making decisions accordingly. It helps to weigh the potential benefits of taking action against the perceived dangers. When you choose to be courageous, and it is a choice you make, the prefrontal cortex overrides the amygdala's fear response by focusing on the long-term goals and values that are ingrained in you, rather than focusing on the immediate threats. For example, a firefighter running into a burning building is guided by their sense of duty and purpose. Their prefrontal cortex keeps the fear response in check, allowing them to act rationally and decisively. Now that you know all of that, let's look at the role of dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter associated with reward and motivation. It plays a big role in your ability to have courage. When you face a fear and succeed, whether it's speaking up in a meeting or even something like skydiving, dopamine floods the brain, reinforcing the behavior. This creates a positive feedback loop, making it more likely that you will act courageously in the future. And there is where I believe a lot can go wrong. Dopamine can be inhibited by many things, causing other issues like reduced motivation, decreased feelings of pleasure, motor impairments like tremors and rigidity, and potential symptoms resembling Parkinson's disease. It can contribute to depression and anxiety. So as you can see, these all affect your ability or want to have the courage you desire. So what can block dopamine and cause these things to happen? Well, there are many ways this can happen. A major way is by taking various drugs, whether over the counter or illegal, can cause dopamine receptors to be blocked. This is a serious problem that, without a doubt, can lead to the issues I just spoke about and more. This can lead to even more drug intake. Again, whether over the counter or illegal, can both be very harmful and addictive, causing an endless loop of needing more and more medications to treat all the issues. Please be on guard for this and try as best as you can to understand which drugs are doing this to you. Again, whether prescribed or not, have a very honest and open conversation with your physician and see if there are alternatives to the medications you are taking that fall into this category. The last thing any of us need is our brains to not be working at full capacity. Now, to tie a bow on this section, I want to talk about an important aspect here that is emotional regulation and the part of the brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. The ACC in short. The ACC is involved in detecting conflicts and errors as well as regulating emotions. So very important. It helps you navigate the tension between fear and action, providing the emotional fortitude or courage needed to take risks. Studies show that individuals with greater activity in the ACC are more likely to act courageously, even when afraid. Why is this so important? Well, if the ACC is damaged or suppressed, it can affect cognitive control, decision-making, emotional regulation, and pain perception, causing your ability to have the courage you need to diminish tremendously. This can be caused by things like neurodegenerative diseases, psychiatric disorders like depression, anxiety, and obsessive compulsive disorders, also known as OCD. Damage to the ACC can also be caused by substance abuse, stress, and genetic variations. I went through all of that to show you that the brain health in all of us is paramount, and to also show that lifestyle changes, along with using the techniques I discussed in several episodes, again, like in episodes 8 and 22, can actually change how the brain works. The idea here is your brain health. And that, my friends, is where I'm going to leave off and pick up right here in episode 2 of the Courage two-part series. So I went through a lot in this episode, and the idea was to give you an overview of not only how our brain works, but to show you what can affect our brain's health and how important it is to know what specifically may be causing your brain to not be at optimal working condition. Since we have the workings of the brain down and how it affects courage, the next episode will take us down the road of wiring in what we need to find the confidence and the courage we desire. So, what are your thoughts on part 1 of this 2-part series on courage? I'd love to find out. And here is where to get a hold of the show and let us know. These are in the show notes, but as always, here they are. There is a new link that you can click on that will allow you to donate to the show and show your support. By donating what you can, it will allow me to book guests and cover costs. Anything will help, and you can cancel anytime, and it is through our host, Buzzsprout, so very safe. You can also message the show from each episode on your various platforms. Just look for the send us a text message link. And if that doesn't work for you, you can email us at newvisionoldways@gmail.com. Again, that's newvisionoldways@gmail.com. You can find us on what was Twitter, now X, at newvisionoldway. No S on that one, at NewVision Old Way. Check out the NewVision Old Ways YouTube channel. Type in NewVision, one word, Old Ways, one word, and please subscribe. It is free and it will show support for the show. It really means a lot and will help grow the show on YouTube. Facebook, same thing, NewVision, one word, Old Ways, one word podcast, and you should easily find us. And as a reminder, these are growing platforms for us and expanding all the time. So we need your help to get the flow going with the community. And last but not least, if you can do me a huge favor and subscribe to us, like us, follow us, leave a review on whatever platform you found us on, that would be so appreciated. That will also help secure guests that we will be booking in the future. And now that we are firmly in season 3, this season is going to have a few surprises along the way, and I truly hope you will enjoy it. I can't wait to get your input, and I also can't wait until we get together for the next episode of New Vision, Old Ways. Until then, stay true to yourself, stay informed, and stay empowered.
But the most important thing is...
This episode of New Vision Old Ways has been written, engineered, and produced by your host, Tony Marinaccio, and TKM Productions.